Yo, what's up, guys? I just Endymion came out, and I want to discuss it a little bit, just because I'm kind of tired of seeing a lot of these deck profiles. I just want to put some of my thoughts out there. All right. The first one is obviously I want to go over the Endymion cards. Of course, Servant is like absurd. It's an Electrum Turbo card. Yeah, everyone runs three of this and everything, right? This guy, one or two of whatever. Um. All right, now we get to Magister. I see a lot of people um
Oh no.
I see a lot of people playing like just like kind of generic pendulum decks like Magicians or Zephyr or something, and then calling it Endymion. But it really isn't. They're just kind of playing Servant for the turbo card, which is great for those decks, don't get me wrong. But like Magister is such a good card if you're focusing on spell counters, which I think is probably the best way to play Endymion right now. I guess the best way to put it is that like Magicians is kind of a one and done deck, right? You set up your one big board with like 5, 6 negates really consistently, but then if it gets broken, you're just effed, right? Because everything you're doing is from your extra deck, it's non-recyclable. But if you play Spell Counter Endymion and really focus on the good main deck monster negates, you have like crazy amount of recyclability because you have everything from your it goes right back into your extra deck and you can just special summon it out again. Magister, what is this his name in English? I don't know. Magister really helps and facilitates his playstyle because you can first of all you can do link plays and stuff with after your pendulum summon, and then you can use Magister as a scale effect to bring back out like a Jackal that you use to link away, right? So already it adds like crazy advantage to your board state, and then the like a really crazy use of it is his monster effect on your opponent's turn. You just special something from your deck, right? So it's kind of like a another servant, but on your opponent's turn. So you can grab either an Endymion or a Jackal King or something like that. Excuse me, a Jackal King or something like that. But you can also use this very underutilized card, which is Empress. A lot of the lists I've been seeing don't run any Empress, but I think this card is a definite one of. You don't ever really want to draw this card, but pendulums you can play more than 40. Hey, this is too much attention. I'll go after that later. But Empress's monster effect is the good effect. So you can use Magister, which you run three of. You can either normal summon it, like if you can use your turbo cards to make Electrum and use your normal summon at the end of the turn, or use its scale effect. Or you can pendulum summon it out depending on what your field's looking like. But essentially, on your opponent's turn, you can get a targeted bounce by special summoning an Empress out of uh out of your deck, which is actually really powerful. Bouncing a lot of uh extra deck monsters like Salamangreat, right? If you bounce their Balings or the Sunlight Wolf, or even just like their normal summon, right? Like Lady Debug or whatever, they're not gonna have material and they can't proceed with their turn. So Empress is like actually really crazy good for removal on your opponent's turn too, which is the cool part. Now we have Citadel. Citadel is one of those cards where people are like, I agree, it doesn't do anything, and I thought it would be pretty bad. But because so many of your cards, if you run like a more spell counter heavy version, really appreciate having spell counters on the field, um, being able to play this before you play your searches and stuff is gonna let you get an extra spell counter effect or two off, right? So like you can play this and then you play Mastery, which lets you search your Servant or your Magister, and then it's already gonna have three counters when it hits the field to use its effect. I'd only play two of these, but I think what makes this really interesting is that you can play terraforming, play two of these, and play one or two of another field spell. I'm gonna get to them too, but I think if you're playing spell counter Endymion, you probably want at least one other engine that benefits from field spells, because one, they build spell counters, and two, it lets your terraforming be a little more toolboxy and diverse, which I think the deck benefits a lot of, just having different options to go into that are in your main deck. Alright, so now obviously, if you're playing spell counters and you're playing pendulums, you're gonna want to play Mythical Beast. Mythical Beasts are already so good in pendulums. Normally you play like a 3-2 lineup of Master Cerberus and King Jackal, but in Endymion, I really like 3-3. Like, there's so many ways to get Jackal out. You have like Servant, you have Cerberus, you can search him off of Abductor. Excuse me. You can search. We'll get to Mythical Institution, but it is such a good card. It is such a good card. Now we have Garuda, which I've seen a couple people play one or two of. I like it at one of because it's searchable by Cerberus or by Electrum, but this lets you bounce an opponent's card for 3 spell counters from your hand. So it's a hand trap, which is like, it's really really good because it can bounce your normal summons too, right? So it's like a solemn warning, but a hand trap, and it only takes 3 spell counters. It's pretty searchable. I think this is a really solid one of in your spell counter decks. It's awesome. Now, Jackal, like not King Jackal, but just Jackal is an interesting one. It essentially just searches out any mythical beast card right to your main monster zone from the main monster zone. So it's a normal summon, which honestly you can kind of need more normal summons in this deck. By default, you really only have Magister and Endymion or Servant, who aren't like the greatest of normal summons. So it's like, it's okay. The best thing is like you can normal summon this. If you can get 3 spell counters, or somehow you can make like get a Jackal out right away and not worry about hand traps as much, which is always really nice to have an early Jackal on the field. I'm not really a fan of playing this right now, but it's an option that you should be cognizant of. Now, I think Abductor is actually so good. It lets you just take any pendulum card from your deck. You just search anything, right? So you can either search like a scale you're missing, you can search your normal summons if you need one. Uh, you search anything. You can search your Amorphage monsters. It's great. This card is like definite 3 of. And then okay, now Mythical Institution, I haven't seen on anybody's deck list besides I think Triff made one a while ago. At least none of the topping deck lists have this. And this card is just absurd, right? Um if you open this in Cerberus, it you just search whatever you want in your deck for whatever you want, right? So it gets 2 spell counters anytime a mythical beast monster is destroyed, which is like whatever. But you can remove spell counters from anywhere on your field to search any monster that you can place a spell counter on for removing the amount of spell counters equal to its level, right? So that's like all the most important cards in your deck. Um, really good. It's so good. Also, it's a soft once per turn. I've had games where I opened up 2 of them, and like a Cerberus, and I just search whatever you want in your deck, right? Just play it by ear. It's crazy good. Now we have the magicians. Okay, so I'm using uh Harmonizer as a sort of stand-in for Pendulum Magicians because I'm not gonna, like, you guys know what that engine does by now. It's like it's just a one big combo, and you're leading to like 5 or 6 negates. You probably want guard dragons in it, right? So as I said before, Servant super good in as like a turbo card for Pendulum Magicians. But Pendulum Magicians in general isn't very good for facilitating the Endymion strategy. So I really wouldn't use too many magicians. They're too bricky. Don't really do enough. But the exceptions are maybe these two. So I think Poison Magician is probably the best one, and Poison Magician also has a unique uh what's the word, interaction where if you use the Odd Eyes engine at the end, you can pop with Sky Iris on top of popping it with Electrum, and you can pretty much get multiple pops off of like one copy of Violet Poison and really take apart your opponent's board. So it's something to think about, but I don't think it's necessary. I've seen people play Black Fang too, just to reduce their attack and play like a stun deck with Endymion and just kind of playing beatdown and using Black Fang to reduce attack values, which I think is an okay idea, but I think Black Fang is just too bricky, doesn't do enough. All right, now we have Zephyr engine. So I think Zephyr's looking pretty good right now, but I think it's similar has similar issues to Magicians, where I think Servant helps facilitate their strategy really well, but I don't think they really belong in like a spell counter Endymion deck. Um, when I was trying them, yeah, so like I said before, if you're running terraforming with the Citadels, you can also search Oracle, and this essentially gets you whatever scale you want, either 1 or 7. And then you're also gonna set yourself up for having the trap card by Pendulum summoning out this guy, Zephyr Nui. But like it feels like too many cards for just the trap card. I'm not really a fan. It feels too clunky to me. I kind of I kind of prefer leaving out the Zephyr engine. Now we're looking at the Darkworm engine. The Darkworm engine is one that actually really surprised me. I thought I wouldn't like it as much in Endymion because it's sort of just like raw pluses, while with Endymion you kind of want more quality cards than quantity cards. You want cards that main deck monsters, they hit the field, they do something impactful, or they're like hard to deal with right away. But honestly, Darkworm package is just so good, right? The pluses you can get off of it, and the good part is you can go into the Guard Dragon plays, of course. Which, like I said before, I really appreciate that Endymion doesn't really have that like one and done problem. But at the same time, there's so much room in the Endymion extra deck that you can fit in the Guard Dragon thing and have it as an option. And then after you do the Guard Dragon, you're still playing Endymion with your Endymions and your King Jackals or Jackal Kings or whatever, and you're recycling them and all that stuff. So I think it's actually really good to have Darkworm. I like running 2 Dragon Shrine, 1 Foolish Burial, 1 Ravine, because Ravine again is searchable for terraforming, which you're playing anyway. Um, and yeah, I'd rather have the other spells than discard a card, right? And then on top of that, I really enjoy including Destrudo with this package. This helps a lot with your Guard Dragon plays, but it also lets you do things like make a Dragster at the end of your combo, or make Yazi going second. And who doesn't like making Yazi into Phoenix, into Unicorn, into like bigger Link monster and Pendulum summoning out your whole hand, right? So I really am a huge fan of this package here. 2 Darkworm, Gate Zero for the plus, obviously. 2 Dragonshot, 1 Foolish, 1 Ravine, and 1 Destrudo. Some of these ratios can be worked out. If you want to play more, oh yeah, this is a good time to talk about deck numbers, or like how many cards you should have in your deck, right? So I know Triff Gaming, huge proponent of 60 card pendulums, and I don't think he's wrong, right? So everyone knows less cards in your deck, the higher chance you have of drawing each card. But unfortunately, this also applies to your Garnets. So you have a 140 chance of drawing like your Destrudo that you don't want to draw in a 40 card deck, or your Gate Zero, right? But if you're playing 60 cards, it's like what, 50% harder to draw those cards, 1 out of 60. And the best thing about pendulums is that a lot of their cards just search other cards. Like they do the same thing, right? Or like maybe You have Abyss Actor or Chronograph, which are both just used to be a free special summon for Electrum. So they're all essentially the same card. So what's important is not the amount of cards you have in your deck, but the ratios of which cards do what, right? Like let's say you want a third of your deck to be turbo cards. Because you have so many options to you, you can have a third of your deck be turbo cards in either 40 cards or in 60 cards. There's just a lot of replaceable searchable cards that really that actually make the math benefit you more if you play more cards if you build it correctly. So on this topic, if you're playing more cards, you may want to run more than one Dragon Ravine. You may want to play 3 Dragonshot. It depends how much you want to hit Dark Worm every turn, right? So in Magicians, I want to hit Dark Worm every single turn, right? So in 60 card Magicians, I'm playing 3 Dragonshot and 3 Dragon's Ravine, right? In Endymion, I feel like it's more of just a plus option or a bait, or it's not your core strategy. It's kind of just like sprinkles on top. So I think the 2-1, two of these, one of these is good enough for now, but we'll see. It all depends on how badly you want it. But I think when you're building a pendulum deck, don't just try to cut to 40 cards right away. Try to get the ratios right proportional to each other. Now looking at Abyss Actor, Curtain Raiser. This guy, he's just a turbo card, right? He also gives you one spell counter. I think you have enough turbo cards in Endymion, especially with Servant now, that you don't really need this guy. He's just like he's okay. I understand why you would play him, but I don't play him. And now you have Chronograph. Chronograph is, I think, yeah, the better card in this scenario. So in a lot of decks, pendulum decks, if I have to pick between Curtain Raiser and Chronograph, I'll take the Curtain Raiser because we don't have the excuse me, because he doesn't bring the Garnet with him, Time Gazer Magician. Well, Chronograph you need the Garnet. However, Chronograph has better functionality in that you can use him even if you have a monster on the field, but also he combos so well with Master Cerberus. But Master Cerberus destroys himself and add Jackal King to your hand. Then you have a Chrono in your hand, you can special summon them both, and for no summons or anything, it's pretty much for free. You have a Jackal King on your board right away, and then you just scale anything else, and then normal summon to make an Electron with the Chronograph or whatever else you have in your hand. It's just getting the Jackal King out early helps hand traps or helps against hand traps so well that I think in this scenario it is better than the Curtain Raiser as a turbo card. I obviously play the 3-in-1 with a Time Gazer. Now we have the Morphage cards, which I'm not really sure how I feel about them right now in this deck. Obviously Morphage cards are like fucking broken, right? But they don't they don't synergize with Dark Worm very well. Sloth, all of them but Goliath, right? Wait, actually no. Sloth is a fucking dragon. Why is Sloth a dragon? Never mind. Okay. So the issue is that when you pendulum summon out and you want to get your Dark Worm to do guard dragon in plays, if you pendulum out an Amorphage monster, you cannot go into your guard dragon plays. So it's a little bit of anti synergy there. However, you have the Celestial Spheres card. I think it's called like Heavenly Spheres now. Uh, Pretty much the link monster from Two Dragons that could bounce a card. When you tribute it, you can special out a dragon from your deck. So that's actually really nice. For after you bounce something, then you can special out one of the Amorphage monsters, which is nice. But they're gonna have 0 attack, 0 defense, so they can just run over it. Um, but it's like they're good. Right now I'm running 2 sloth, but I I'm not really sure what the optimal ratios for this one would be. I think there's a lot of experimentation left just because they're bricks, right? They especially Sloth, because you can't normal summon it. These guys are, I think, a little better if you're not playing the Guard Dragon engine, because they're low scales. You can normal summon it, and when you pen summon it out, it has the same effect. While Sloth, let's say you have a hand where you just draw no normal summons, which I think is pretty likely, and you draw like one Sloth or even like a second Morphage card. It feels really bad. You can't really do anything. Um, so these cards are bricky, but they're extremely powerful. I guess is my verdict on them. I don't have a good count right now, but I'm testing with just two Sloth to see how that goes. And now we have the Sky Iris package. This one is like this is like the most compact of the engines I've mentioned, which is why it's here. But pretty much Skyris, it pops a card in your pendulum zone most of the time. Yeah. So most of the time you're popping something in your pendulum zone, but sometimes you can pop something like, let's say you have a magical mythical institution that's just chilling on the field. It can also pop that to grab either a Arc Pendulum Dragon or a Persona Dragon. Well, those are the preferred ones for scale 1, scale 8. And then this guy is also a target for a Lore of Darkness, which is nice. And on top of that, this adds a lot of spell counters to your field. So, like, you scale Servant, you scale anything else, that's one spell counter. Sky Iris is 2, you pop that. Search whatever you want, scale that, and then that's 3 spell counters. So it's really good for spell counter generation, searching the skills that you want, and then which is called Persona Dragon has it negates an extra deck monster just like once per turn, right? So that's a really good effect that's searchable. You search it with terraforming, and then you also just pen summon it out. It's pretty good, but it's definitely not my preferred thing right now. I guess I'll show you the my current list. This is what I'm testing with now. I feeling like it's pretty good, but yeah. So like I have the 2 Citadel, 1 Dragon Ravine, Mythical Beast package. I'm testing with the Yazi Marimare, Guard Dragons, all that stuff. So hopefully you guys have been enlightened to a few more different ways to look at Endymion. It's not just play Servant, make Electro, and then do the same old pendulum stuff you've been using for 2 years, right? I think a lot of the spell counter generation, spell counter cards are being overlooked quite a bit right now. But I guess we'll see how it goes. Alright, have a great day. Peace.